decade of signs and wonders?
10 years. It's pretty extraordinary.
It is just the most remarkable achievement.
It's a very conscious act to go and make a motion picture, let alone think about launching and sustaining a cinematic universe. I mean, nobody even heard of that 5-6 years ago.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names.
Pretty awesome to see this collective, isn't it? I mean, just a bit part of it.
You couldn't fit any more people on that poster, and everyone deserves to be there. You know, and everyone has fought for their place in the MCU.
It's such an amazingly humble group of people, and everyone's easy to work with that are team players.
Surprise! This will be such fun. I love all these actors. They've made it so fun. It's like a big family.
Good. Evans was a bit off, but nothing much.
Really, we're all having fun, and we're really allowed to be the best versions of whatever these giant movies are.
You're given a set of circumstances and a script, and you go try to put your secret sauce on that and make it fun and entertaining. And I think what's extraordinary is how that baton has been passed in such a magnanimous way from all these franchises.
I am Groot!
I am Steve Rogers.
Now bring them all together. It's just so epic. Are you yawning?
To have created these different worlds and made them so sort of full and rich, and then bring them all together for these last two movies, it's so great.
It's really been 10 years in the making. It is a very, very unique film.
I'm glad it's worked out this way, because we have been working our asses off for a while.
To come this far, 19 movies, 10 years, and still be going, and still have people wanting it, and still be doing something that's new and profound and culturally significant, that's a dream come true.
Yeah, so let's dive in. All right. Like when you talk about Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, aka the MCU, has garnered fans all over the world, producing movies and TV shows that have ultimately brought in more than $29 billion to the worldwide box office. It has created lasting impact across the entertainment industry, and this is undoubtedly the benchmark when it comes to commercial success in the case of filmmaking. So join me as I extract inspiration from the most successful movie franchise in history and explore ways to apply that in our own product development journeys. Hi, my name is Sachith Perera, and I'm working as a technical project manager for Acentic. My responsibilities include product development, project management, and requirement analysis for our customers located in Sweden and some products that Acentic is developing in-house. I have around 7 years of experience in the IT industry and have a passion for business, pop culture, and technology. As you may or may not know, project management is not limited to the IT industry, but is a profession that works across many industries at various levels. So as a project manager and a general curious person, I find certain business side of things really intriguing. So I'm about to share one of those with you. We're going to start things off trying to understand what we are trying to achieve from this session and why I have chosen the MCU out of all things to explain about product development. I would then like to introduce you to what MCU is, although I'm not a filmmaker. I'm going to share with you the process of filmmaking and try to draw the parallels between the process of software development and franchise movie production. It's important that we figure out the companies that are working behind the scenes to create value out of nothing and share with you about how the movies of the MCU are just a fraction of the revenue compared to the revenue they contribute to generate elsewhere. What can the MCU teach us about product development and what can we adopt from it? Something that I'm keen on sharing with all of you. There are challenges that oppose us as at the start, and then there are challenges that we must face at the height of success. This is something that Marvel and the MCU is generally facing these days, and I would like to share some of the takeaways from that whole situation. So let's dive in. We are all attracted to good stories as a way of understanding the collective means of sharing experiences and embarking on adventures in both fictional and non-fictional settings. We've been crafting the skills of storytelling for over centuries and expanding the mediums. From the most simplistic ones all the way to the most sophisticated, while it is important that we learn from the same industry, it'll also be of value to expand our learnings and draw inspiration from other industries as well. There could be these could be essential to develop our knowledge and potentially contribute to the success of our own products. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU in short, comprises of 32 movies so far and 17 TV shows, and it has garnered over a gross earning of over USD $29 billion, and it has been spanning for 15 years and still continuing. And also, it is the trendsetter for large movie franchise building. Let's dive into the process part of things. So first, I would like to expand and talk about the software product development cycle. Producing software products usually happens in a proper cycle such as this. As you could see here, a lot of the products start out as just ideas where the teams involved gather around and brainstorm for ideas that could benefit the users. An idea could be the result of a collaborative effort, or it could be an idea of an individual. I mean, how many of us have had amazing ideas when we were taking showers? Instead of letting those wash away down the drain, we could plan them out. These could be planned out to the minute detail as much as or as little as possible, or we could go all the way down by planning things out and initially and then figuring the rest along the way. The next stage is to construct the product and the construct the product, and this involves a lot of problem solving. No matter how solid you think your product is, it is never safe to assume that it is stable enough for the real life environments. That's where testing becomes as useful as it gets to try out certain situations or combinations of situations that real life users could be doing when they actually use the product. Once it's tested, it's time for you to release the product and review the feedback received. Here, it's crucial to pay enough attention to the suggestions that are and issues that are reported by the users, because at the end of the day, they are the heart of the product, and that's where the product lies. Then you repeat this process by taking in feedback received and making sure that those are taken into consideration as much as possible. It will become very useful in your next versions. Sometimes the feedback could be opposite of what you imagined your product's intended usability is, and it also could be the other external factors that you have to pivot to a different product entirely. So this is in a perfect world, and at least in theory, that's the product development process of a process or cycle. For a more realistic depiction of what it really looks like, it looks something like this. And no, it's not someone's hair that's all bundled up. We could start from one area, and then it could end up in a different place altogether. The process of producing a standalone movie has remained in a straight line as far as what I could find out about it online. As you can see, the process remains linear. These could change every now and then due to challenges like funding, production delays, negative reception. Uh, these could be at test screenings, resulting in certain reshoots, and there could be certain scenarios where the weather conditions are not favorable. It could be a whole bunch of other reasons. But no matter what kind of negative scenario it is, the show must go on. So they must release the movie. Again, to highlight, I'm not a movie producer, so this is what I could find out online about movie production. If this standalone movie is released and is generally positively received by the audience, then follow-up movies that are either prequels or sequels or tie-ins to the original movie will be produced. While this remained the case throughout the history of filmmaking, no one had anticipated the possibility of a movie franchise at the scale of MCU, which exists today. If we put these two processes of software development and franchise movie production side by side, we can note some similarities, but none of this is. But this is at a very high level very high level depiction of the similarity. The actual scenario and actual process could be far different or similar depending on different situations. We have now understood the process of filmmaking and the process of software development. So let's continue. Before we dive into details about the MCU, we must first try to understand the business behind it, because there are a lot of partnerships and multitude of different companies working on a cinematic universe of this grand scale. Sitting at top of everything is the big mouse itself, the Walt Disney Company that owns everything to do with Marvel. Disney purchased the company, which is Marvel, back in 2009 for $4 billion US, and that has brought in a huge array of Marvel-related properties under Disney's belt. As you can see in this diagram, the Marvel company, when you dissect it, you can see Marvel Studios that we are all familiar with, that produces all the movies. You can also see Marvel Comics, which produces the publishing and licensing and distribution of comics, Marvel Comics. There's also a separate company called Marvel Games, which produces Marvel games such as Spider-Man, Avengers, so on. There's a different set of companies under Marvel Studios, which produces Marvel television shows, Marvel Music, which produces the scores and the beautiful audio that you hear during the movie experiences, and also Marvel Film Production. So they handle all the logistics and all the other things that are involved. There's also MVL development and MVL productions that are involved in this whole process. So as you can see, a whole lot of companies, let alone a whole lot of people that are working on specific projects in this huge business environment. Each of the companies you saw earlier produce the following revenue generators, such as box office movies and TV shows that are available for streaming. A large chunk of revenue generation happens off-screen in consumer products such as action figures, branded products, video games, and consumer experiences such as theme parks, restaurants, and other attractions. For comparison, while the movies in the MCU has generated over $29 billion US, the revenue generated from streaming Marvel-related content has generated far more. It's somewhere around $40 billion, and that's according to the stats from 2021. Although Disney doesn't reveal revenue generated from Marvel merchandise separately, the stats from the same year reveal that the revenue from the consumer products is around $3 billion US. According to Forbes, the revenue from Disneyland Paris reported US dollars 2.6 billion just last year. This is the theme park that has the Avengers campus that houses attractions from the Marvel universe. If you can see in the picture below, it shows all the Avengers campus inside the Disney World, and it has theme park roller coaster rides, virtual reality experiences, and much more. There are lessons to be learned in the case of MCU. These help the MCU to be set apart from the rest of the franchises in the entertainment industry, while providing a great deal of knowledge for any product development teams to replicate or get inspiration from. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty and the details and how you can learn from the MCU. It's always important to plan for the future. It could be a couple of months or it could be years ahead. With a plan, you're always ready for what's beyond. Once you structure these plans out, it becomes easy to make changes if things don't go well as you hoped. Making project plans and working towards getting them completed with checkpoints in place really helps projects. In MCU's case, when they released their first movie, they had years of plans ahead. To this day, they keep revealing these plans at fan conventions such as Comic Cons. They have their plans structured in a manner where there are sagas, and each saga has multiple phases under them, and each phase has underneath. Each project has its own purpose in the grand scale of things, which has aspects such as delivery timelines, scope, and themes defined. Revealing your plans to the right audience at the right time would contribute to the project in a healthy manner. As you can see in the image here, this is one of such reveals. So Marvel does this all the time. They know who their audience is, and they reveal these plans to the audience and the fans in advance, so everyone can get their pockets ready to see the movies and TV shows. But however much you planned, things could always go wrong. Therefore, preparing for them could mean the difference of panicking and handling the situation, or it could be identifying these risks and having mitigation plans in place would make it possible to steer back on the course in case things do go wrong. In the MCU, there are various risks such as actor recastings, unexpected budget increases, scope changes, release delays, and so on. We may have heard such a scenario when Chadwick Boseman, the actor who played Black Panther, died unexpectedly, but they were still able to recover from such a loss. Sometimes you may need to partner up because your product may not have certain attributes that are wanted by the consumers. To prevent the customers from falling onto the competitor's hands, it's important to form certain meaningful partnerships. In MCU's case, the ownership to the intellectual property rights of Spider-Man, the entire Spider-Man universe, belongs to Sony to this day, since it was sold back in the day in 1999. But Marvel was able to negotiate a deal with Sony to use Spider-Man entire universe in the MCU, where Sony gets a revenue from the box office sales, while Disney and Marvel holds the revenue generated from Spider-Man related merchandise sales. In my opinion, this is a brilliant negotiation, and they have garnered the big chunk of the cake all to themselves. In a similar situation, the distribution rights of the character Hulk belongs to the Universal Pictures. Marvel understood the importance of this character in the MCU, so they negotiated and formed a partnership with Universal Pictures to use Hulk with restrictions in a way that he fitted into the MCU. But recently, these rights have fallen back into Marvel. The leadership provides the necessary guidance and establishes proper strategy with their forward-thinking vision. This is important as looking forward to the future and having the ability to make decisions to prepare for it takes a different level of skills. Kevin Feige, who is the president of Marvel Studios, has provided this level of leadership in creating the MCU. His planning is unrivaled, and the most realistic comparison to this is the fact that the MCU has been running for 15 years to date, while the competitor, DC EU or DC Extended Universe, has lacked any world building attributes, and it's currently going through a major restructure starting from scratch with a clean slate of movies under new leadership of James Gunn. Selecting the right talent to work on the project should be a careful decision that has to be made by taking into consideration about the various personalities and skills. Finding common grounds of those different individuals working together would go a long way. For the MCU, they assigned Jon Favreau as the director and executive producer for their very first movie, which is Iron Man, and he understood his assignment really well. He created a fan favorite movie with the available resources at the time. The team should be dedicated towards achieving the goals and possess a thirst for growth. Each member in a team is a crucial part of the entire team. Each of the team has their own ambitions and goals that should be listened to and acted upon. It's your responsibility as a leader to take care of your team and to listen to them all the time and then changing your plans accordingly. Establishing the domain that you're working on is very important. In MCU's case, they already had an established customer base through comic book readers. The content needs to be targeted to the customers. If you create what they want, then it is going to be much easier to appeal. In MCU, they know the type of content they need to produce, and they are mostly stuck to proven general audiences. They also include a lot of content that is directly targeted towards the fans of the lore through what's referred to as fan service. To do this, you could use a model called customer profile that talks about a specific customer segment. You could also use the value map to determine the products and services you have to offer, define how your product is going to create gains, and identify how your product relieve pains of the customers. You also need to understand how your product fits. It could be a product market fit. It could be something else. So it could be something like a business model fit, or it could be a problem solution fit. That's up to you to decide. Listening to your customers and working on improvements that are prioritized on the feedback is going to make sure that the customers are going to stick with your product. Back in the day, when there were complaints that the music in Marvel movies were generic and didn't work on enhancing the entertainment experience, Marvel actually listened to this. Then they had improved the scores used within the movies. Great way to get this feedback directly from the source is to have a mechanism built in within your product. Or just talk to your customers directly and understand what's important there. You may think since Marvel is a billion-dollar company and they are producing grand-scale entertainment products, they do not listen to their consumers. Actually, that is not the case. Kevin Feige, who is the president of Marvel Studios, still goes to these test screenings unannounced, and he gets these moments where fans cheer or have certain empathetic feelings towards the movies. He gauges these and takes that feedback and uses that learning that he gets for the next projects that he's working on. Although you don't need to react to the market situation all the time, it's important to keep an eye on it and having plans to evolve your product based on the market. MCU movies had a lack of diversity issue that they are in the process of sorting out by making inclusion a norm in their products. The MCU actually wouldn't exist and go on for 15 years if it wasn't for their first project. The first version of the product that Marvel put out was Iron Man all the way back in 2008. Now, the unpleasant experience in 2008 is a global financial crisis, but we got Iron Man. At this point, Marvel was not well off in terms of financials because the company had not been generating enough revenue. Things were so bad at Marvel that multiple intellectual properties they owned, such as the Fantastic Four, X-Men, were sold to Fox Studios. Therefore, this project was funded with the great ambitions of risks, as this could very well break or make the company at the time. With a limited budget and a strict timeline of 18 months, the task was undertaken by a passionate team that included Kevin Feige, who was a producer, Jon Favreau, who was a director and executive producer, and Robert Downey Jr., who was the main actor. Robert Downey Jr. might be a really big star right now, but at the time he was coming out of some personal troubles, and it was a really risky move that they hired him at the time. The success of the first product meant that Marvel got purchased by Disney the following year in 2009 for $4 billion US. And this has fueled so much creativity and technology as a result to date. They were so successful that they later went on to acquire the entire Fox movie studio, the same studio that they had to sell off their properties to back in the day. Ouch, that is a burn. In products, it's important that you get the first version created in a manner that addresses the key needs of the consumers. These first versions are often referred to as prototypes or MVPs, minimum viable products, and they are crucial to understanding where you sit in the market. If you're unsure on how to get started on this, the business model canvas or anything similar, such as a lean canvas, could be a great place to start. Lean canvas helped me and our product teams to develop a couple of in-house build projects. Utilizing new technologies such as much as possible is going to improve your bandwidth for innovation. In Marvel's case, the technologies that were developed and used in Marvel movies have come a long way. The first one that you see on the screen here is a new screen that they're using for filming, where they are trying to replace the green screens with a full screen that wraps around the actors. This screen enables them to project the lighting onto the actor's skin and actor's skin, so that the lighting is really natural and produces a much better believable experience. The next one is the animatronics that they developed to perform certain stunts. This animatronic, which you can see in the screen, will be used in movies and is currently used in Avengers Campus as part of Spider-Man attraction. You can go look it up online. There are a bunch of videos that are on YouTube where visitors of Avengers Campus, they have recorded how this animatronic functions, and you can also learn about how they got to this level, this stage. There was so much of testing, and they started with just a stick robot. So it's really inspiring. Learning from the past is important. Understanding similar situations that have happened in the past is going to help avoid certain risks from taking place. In Marvel's case, since they've had the experience of being bankrupt in the past, where they, as a company, had to rely on selling some of the characters owned in order to survive. They are really careful when it comes to managing their finances. This is true in every startup or product team, because no matter how brilliant of a team you have or how much of a sophisticated product your product is, if you don't have sufficient funding and the necessary resources that are required, then it's not going to be fruitful. You shouldn't just offer mediocre products and services to consumers. In this fast-paced world, you have to be creative and offer unique products. In the MCU, they became the pioneers in large format movie universe building that they are still continuing. Your product should create certain feelings in the consumer's minds. In MCU's case, when a moviegoer is going to watch a Marvel movie, they expect it to be a good experience. And they have had so much impact in us that we wait until the movie ends and the credits roll, hoping for a post-credit scene. Sometimes we get nothing. Yeah, I would like to direct a question to the audience at this stage. I would like to ask you what is the last Marvel movie or TV show that you have watched? You can either send it in the Q&A section, in the comment box, and I would really like to hear. All right. Yeah. So let's move on. I think we have, yeah, we have a couple of participants who are saying they have watched WandaVision, the one with the stones. I think you mean either Infinity Star Saga or the Endgame. Moon Knight, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, so we have quite a lot of fans in the audience. All right, Into the Spider-Verse is next level, of course. So you need to sort of understand that Sony and Marvel are heading two separate ways, and Into the Spider-Verse marks Sony's way of replicating the Marvel formula in their own separate universe. That's something interesting and something that's unfolding as we speak. All right, let's get into the Act 3, which is the last piece of information which I would like to share with you. Although how successful MCU is, and no matter how successful you get, you'll always have to face a fair share of challenges. In MCU's case, there are multiple issues that they are facing now, such as getting post-pandemic moviegoers back to cinemas, superhero fatigue of the audience, declining quality of production, among other things. But these seems to be getting addressed by the project announcements for the future. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. This is a good indication to all product development teams that just because the product passed a certain stage, it doesn't necessarily translate to continue its success. Instead, the quality must be maintained and the customer needs to be essential in the continued growth. Deviating too far off of the success formulas is going to end up in reduced acceptance. No matter how meticulously you set everything geared towards success and do everything right, there's no fun if you don't enjoy what you do. You should always have fun, share experiences, and be happy in what you do. So it's really important to create those moments and take a moment to celebrate what you accomplished. Say thanks and appreciate the efforts that your team has made and be happy with what you developed. As the late Stan Lee used to say, Excelsior, which means ever upward. And on this note, I would like to end my Fika session, and I would like to thank everyone for sticking around until the end. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I share most of my product related ideas, tips, and information. And unlike Marvel movies, I do not have end credit scenes, but I'm happy to answer your questions in a little while. Also, be sure to check out Ascentic social media. We are there on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. So I'm going to hand over this session to Lulu for questions.
Thank you, Sachith. Now, this session will be available on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So there's a lot to. I'm definitely going to watch this again. We have some time for some questions. If anyone is. Oh, yeah, we've got one. Sachith, can you see that in the chat? What are some of the common pitfalls in modern day product development?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there are so many issues in product development these days where you either don't have a specific target or a budget. You actually don't plan ahead. You may plan for a certain extent, but there are instances where you don't necessarily plan ahead what you're going to do after completing a certain stage. So as I explained in my presentation, it's really important to avoid the pitfalls by planning ahead. In modern day product development, I have seen a lot of products and companies that are starting up that just die down after a couple of months or a year. That's because they haven't planned and they are not listening to the customers or their key stakeholders as closely as possible. So just do what Marvel does. There's a saying in the product development world, which is you have to eat your own. I think it goes as dog food. If you own a dog food company, you have to eat your own dog food. That's as disgusting as it is. The products that you develop, if you are not fans and if you are not passionate about it, no one else is going to be passionate about it.
We have another one in the chat. This isn't really a product development question, but why do you think that the DCEU has failed to mimic the success of MCU in the era of comic book movies?
Yeah, I think that's another. It's not a product development question, but I would love to answer that question because I'm a geek myself. So I'm really happy to answer that question. So the DCEU or the DC Extended Universe is the direct competitor of Marvel, and they are the filmmaking branch of DC Comics. So what they have been trying to do is they've been trying to replicate the Marvel formula and try to sort of make their own movies in their own way. But they haven't really understood what their core audience is or what they're doing, because Marvel, they seem to understand their characters. They know that the general audiences usually love seeing funny, goofy movies and productions. So they have targeted that specifically. But in the case of DC EU, what they have done is, although they have godly characters, they haven't targeted that formula. They have tried to, introduce humor in ways that don't work. They don't necessarily go to the screenings and try to understand, okay, how are the movie goers experiencing this particular product that we have produced. They don't do any of that. They have all the time. What they have done is they have always tried to not listen to the audience and do what they are doing and just keep on continuing to do that. And they have, since Marvel's success, they have rushed a lot in their own world building, which has caused a lot of issues, and which I think they're trying to revamp the whole thing right now. Yeah. I think there's one more question. If a dev, SSC or tech lead wants to make a transition to product management, what's your advice? I think this is a really interesting question. Here, what you should do is you should try to involve yourself a lot more in terms of identifying customer requirements, business requirements, and try to understand how businesses work. Try to see from the background how these companies operate and what you could do, where the development that you do sort of impacts. So if you're already a developer, you have an idea about how to solve problems, but you should also understand how where the problems lie and how to solve those problems. So it may not be a technical solution, it might be a business solution. So these kind of things are really important. You have to understand the business, and you should be generally curious person. To answer your question more deeply, or in professionally, I would suggest that you go through the BA book, which is the business analysis book of knowledge. It has so many number of techniques that you can use to ask questions from customers and try to find the root cause and how to build products from scratch. Also, there is a book by Wiley called Product Development. I can't remember the the lengthy term, but I will share that later on. That book is also a really helpful book, which has a lot of information about product development and has helped me in this journey of product development. Yeah. Yeah. There is another question. I don't think it's a question. As an outsider, I'd like to add that DCU has a disadvantage of legacy through Superman and Batman, like a legacy company, versus Marvel being more untested and able to take more risks like a startup. And they were so focused on a big picture without getting the individual parts right in the first place. I think Dinesh, you are absolutely right. This is a really important factor. You can Marvel had nothing to lose basically, whereas DCU was a well-established company under the guise of Warner Brothers. So that's a really important point there. All right. Any more questions?
Does anyone have any more questions?
There's a question, what DCU can do to improve? I think we'll see this unfolding after the Blue Beetle movie coming out this year. So that's James Gunn's first movie of the DCU. Now it's not DCU anymore, it's DCU now after James Gunn. So what they can do to improve is, like I said earlier, try to listen to their customers and know what they want, and then build your product and the projects on top of that. That's what they can do. Yeah.
Sachith, you said there are 19 movies?
In the Marvel universe?
Yeah.
32.
How many?
32.
Do you know the order of all of them?
No.
Thank you everyone for joining. I think if we have no more questions, we might wrap it up here. Thank you, Sachith. That was incredibly interesting, even for non-techie kind of people like us. Send us a message if you end up watching a MCU movie tonight. I think you might have inspired everyone. As I said before, this whole session will be up on YouTube. We'll send you all a link once it's up. Thank you, Sachith, for putting so much work into this, and to the team behind Fika who makes this happen every month. We're here every month, guys. Please tune in. We've got another interesting one next month, which we'll share with you. Have a brilliant afternoon and see you soon.